Ob 3,000 words, Hoon. Unique epic goosebumps Wally. The Galactic War Council had been in session for 19 hours when someone finally said the thing everyone had been thinking. We need humans. The chamber went quiet in the particular way that large rooms go quiet when something true and inconvenient has been said out loud for the first time. 47 representatives from 47 civilizations, seated in a ring that had been designed to suggest equality while subtly encoding hierarchy in the elevation of each seat, all found somewhere else to look. Hayavda let the silence sit for a moment before responding. The motion is noted, she said carefully, and premature. Humanity's involvement in Galactic Council affairs has historically resolved things, said the representative who had spoken. Ambassador of the small and precise, with the particular quality of stillness that his species developed after centuries of living next to things that were larger and more dangerous than them. I have reviewed every significant crisis this council has faced in the last 60 years. Every one that was resolved, not managed, not deferred, not negotiated into a temporary ceasefire that collapsed 14 months later. Every single one had human involvement. Correlation is not. 19 hours, said. We have been in this chamber for 19 hours. The fleet crossed the meridian boundary 11 days ago. They have taken 3 systems. They will take 3 more within the month if nothing changes. We have produced 412 pages of analysis and 0 solutions. He looked around the ring. I am suggesting we call someone who solves things. The crisis was real and the math was bad. They were not technically a civilization. They had been once a complex and sophisticated society with art and philosophy, and a history that their own archivists had spent generations carefully documenting. They had also, 400 years ago, made a decision that had seemed reasonable at the time and had consequences that were still unfolding. They had modified themselves. Not gradually, not partially. A wholesale biological and psychological restructuring driven by a war they had been losing and a desperation that had made unthinkable options suddenly thinkable. They had removed the capacity for fear, for hesitation, for the particular kind of exhaustion that makes armies stop and negotiators find compromise and civilizations decide that enough is enough. They had become, in the most literal possible sense, unstoppable. Not invincible, they could be killed. Individual could be defeated in direct combat by soldiers with sufficient training and sufficient willingness to absorb casualties. Their ships could be destroyed. Their infrastructure could be dismantled. But they could not be deterred, could not be negotiated with, could not be made to calculate that the cost of continuing exceeded the benefit of stopping, because the part of them that made those calculations had been removed 400 years ago along with everything else that had seemed like weakness. Every civilization that had tried conventional military engagement had won battles and lost campaigns because they simply continued. Losses that would have broken any normal military meant nothing to them. Tactical defeats were absorbed and worked around with the patient, affectless efficiency of something that did not experience defeat as defeat, just as a current state to be changed. The Galactic Council had been managing the problem for 200 years, containing them, redirecting them, occasionally sacrificing smaller systems to preserve larger ones, which was a thing that happened and was never recorded in the official histories. Now the containment had failed and 3 systems were gone, and the council had been in session for 19 hours. Was right, they needed humans. Admiral Santos arrived at Galactic Council Station with a staff of 12, and a reputation that preceded her in ways she found alternately useful and exhausting. She was 51 years old. She had commanded Earth's Rapid Response Fleet for 9 years. Before that, she had spent 11 years in deep space operations that were classified at levels that made most of her official record look like a summary of a summary. She moved through the council station with the particular efficiency of someone who had learned, through extensive experience, that the fastest way through most situations was a straight line. Met her at the docking bay personally, which was a diplomatic signal that Santos noted and filed away. Admiral, thank you for coming on short notice. 19 hours of session and 400 pages of nothing, Santos said. You weren't short on notice, you were short on willingness. She said it without hostility, just as an observation. What's the current position of the primary fleet? Blinked, perhaps we should begin with a full briefing. I read the briefing on the way here. 11 days ago, 3 systems, moving at a consistent rate that suggests they'll reach the border in approximately 3 weeks. Santos was already walking. Current position of the primary fleet. Moving toward the system, said, falling into step. Our projections suggest. Your projections are wrong, Santos said, not unkindly, just as a fact. They're not going to, that's the obvious target, and the don't do obvious. They do relentless, which is different. She paused at a corridor junction and looked at the station map on the wall for 4 seconds. They're going to bypass, take Meridian Station, and use it to split your supply lines. Once your supply lines are split, falls anyway, and you've lost the infrastructure to respond. She started walking again. I need the full sensor data from the last 11 days, not the summary, the raw data. Behind her, exchanged a look with her aide that communicated several things simultaneously, most of which were variations on the same theme. This was either going to work very well or very badly. Santos spent 14 hours with the data. She slept for 3 of those hours, which her staff had learned to accommodate. She slept in short intervals distributed through work periods rather than in long consolidated blocks, a habit developed during a decade of operations where long consolidated sleep was a luxury that circumstances rarely provided. She woke from each interval as if she had simply paused and resumed with no transitional grogginess, which her staff found slightly unnerving and had stopped mentioning. She ate twice. She spoke very little. She made marks on displays and ran simulations, and occasionally went completely still for minutes at a time in the way that indicated she was thinking through something rather than having stopped. Her senior strategist commander had worked with her for 6 years and had learned to read these stillnesses. This one lasted 11 minutes, which by his experience meant she had found something. There, she said. He looked at what she was pointing at, a gap in this movement pattern, small, consistent, repeated across every major operation in the last 200 years of records. They pause, she said, every 48 to 72 hours, brief, never in a pattern that looks deliberate, different durations, different locations, but it's there every time. Studied it, could be resupply. No, their resupply pattern is documented and it doesn't correlate. This is something else. She was quiet for a moment. They removed fear, hesitation, the capacity for cost-benefit calculation, but they didn't remove everything. She pointed at 3 specific instances in the data. These pauses happen consistently after periods of high casualty rates, not catastrophic, not the kind of losses that would stop any normal army, but high. She looked at him. They can't feel fear. But something in them still registers loss, not as a reason to stop, but as something, a response that doesn't change behavior but exists anyway. Stared at the data, that's the thing they didn't manage to remove completely, she said. Because you can't remove everything, you can suppress, you can restructure. But 400 years ago, they were a civilization with grief and memory and the weight of losing people who matter. You don't engineer all of that out in 1 generation. She straightened. It doesn't stop them, but it slows them. For 48 to 72 hours, something in the processing is heavier. And in that window, their tactical decision-making is fractionally less optimal. Not enough for a conventional force to exploit, but enough. Enough for what? Asked. Enough for what I have in mind, she said. She presented the plan to the council the following morning. It took 40 minutes to explain. The council chamber, which had produced 19 hours of discussion without resolution, was completely silent for most of it. The plan was not a military plan in the conventional sense. It did not involve a decisive engagement or a strategic strike or any of the approaches the council's advisors had been modeling for 11 days. It was a timing plan, a precision plan, a plan that required coordinating the movements of 7 separate fleets across 3 systems to be in specific positions at a specific moment. A window of 48 hours that would not arrive for 9 days and would not arrive again for an unpredictable period after that. It required every fleet to move in ways that looked individually like retreats, withdrawals, further losses. For 9 days from the outside, it would appear that nothing was working and the situation was deteriorating. You're asking us to give up 3 more systems, one of the council representatives said. I'm asking you to choose which 3 systems you give up in order to choose where they are in 9 days, Santos said. There's a difference. She looked around the chamber. You've been trying to stop them. You can't stop them. Nothing stops them. But you can choose where they are and what they've just done when the window opens. and where they are and what they've just done determines what happens in that window. And if the window doesn't perform as you've projected, asked, if the pause doesn't occur on schedule or doesn't last long enough, then we're in the same position we're in now, Santos said. -3 systems we were going to lose anyway. She paused. I've been doing this for 30 years. I don't present plans I don't believe in. I believe in this one. She looked it steadily. But it requires every fleet to follow the timeline exactly, not approximately, not with local commander discretion to adapt based on conditions. Exactly. Because the window is narrow and the positioning has no margin. The council voted. It was not unanimous, it was sufficient. 9 days later, at 3:47 hours station time, the window opened. What followed lasted 4 hours and 11 minutes. Santos coordinated it from a command vessel at the center of the engagement zone, her voice steady and precise across 7 simultaneous fleet channels, making adjustments in real time as conditions varied from projections by margins that were small enough to work within and large enough to require constant recalculation. Watched her work and thought, not for the first time, that there was something almost inhuman about the way she processed simultaneous information streams, except that it was entirely human, just a kind of human that most people never saw because it only emerged under the specific conditions of genuine crisis with genuine stakes and genuine complexity, and no margin for the normal human tendency to simplify. They did not stop. They never stopped. But for 4 hours and 11 minutes they were in the position Santos had chosen for them, and moving in the directions she had anticipated and encountering what she had placed in their path, and the cumulative effect of 4 hours and 11 minutes of being exactly where someone had decided they should be, encountering exactly what that someone had decided they should encounter, was something that 400 years of engineering had not prepared them for. They did not break, they did not surrender, they did not negotiate. But they changed direction. Not because they had calculated that the cost exceeded the benefit, not because they were afraid or deterred or exhausted, but because the tactical logic of their situation, as they processed it, indicated that a different direction was more optimal. A direction that took them away from the border, away from the supply line split, away from everything they had been building toward for 11 days. Santos watched the sensor data update and said nothing for a long moment. Then she said quietly to no one in particular, "There it is." The council session that followed was brief, 40 minutes, the shortest in recent memory. Found Santos afterward in the observation lounge, looking at the stars, which she seemed to do when she needed to think about something that did not require a display. "How did you know about the pause?" asked. "That data has been in our archives for 200 years. Our analysts have reviewed it dozens of times." Santos was quiet for a moment. "Your analysts were looking for a way to stop them," she said. "I wasn't looking for a way to stop them. I was looking for a way to understand them." She paused. "There's a difference. You can't stop something that can't be deterred, but you can understand it, and once you understand something well enough, you can work with the grain of it instead of against it." She looked at the stars. "They removed fear. They removed hesitation. They couldn't remove grief. It's too deep. It goes all the way down." She was quiet for a moment. "I know something about things that go all the way down." Looked at her carefully. "Humanity." "We've had a lot of practice," Santos said, "at finding the thing that's still there, even when everything else has been taken away." She turned from the window. "They'll change direction again eventually. This isn't permanent. You need a longer-term solution, and I'll help you think through it, but that's a different conversation." She picked up her bag. Today was enough. She left, stood at the observation window for a long time after. Outside, the stars were very old and very numerous and full. She was increasingly convinced of problems that required a particular kind of mind to solve. The kind that looked for what was still there, even in the dark, even after everything else was gone.